Hey guys, Faxi Nadu here. Welcome again to the 30 patches in 30 days, and this is day number 2. And I hope I have enough ideas for 30 days, so I hope you bear with me here. But this is, I think, today I found something cool to talk about. I've built a nice patch that actually uses multiple MIDI channels within one simple 2OSC patch, and there's a reason for that. And I want to show you how I always talk about getting a dynamic sound and movement and stuff like that, and I want to show you how using this method actually really helps you do that, and is an interesting way and a fun way to modulate your sounds. So we have this elaborated patch, and at the end of this video, once we built this one and I explain what is going on here, I'll play around. I'll mute what we're building, and I'll play around with this one like in the previous videos, so you kind of get to hear the sound that's coming out and what it's eventually what I've used it for. But for right now, let's get into it. So I have this patch over here, and I've built some of the basic things that we will need. But first I want you to hear the context of what we're going to be doing. So let's take a 9-bar loop here. I'm muting our sound for a minute. This is the track without what we're going to add to it. So it's just a basic sort of trance beat, nothing fancy yet. And what I want to do is I want to add this sound to be a sort of like a fill. It's just, look, the MIDI is really, really simple. It's just 2 hits on the offbeat every other 1/4, and it's just on the basic note of my track. So the role for this part is just to give a sort of stab and keep the drive going for the track. And this is the sound. Really like the simplest possible thing ever, okay? And the way it's set up here is we have our the MIDI's coming into scope. We have the MIDI brain, and we are taking frequency to 1 oscillator, the simplest possible saw oscillator, and it's going into just a simple low-pass filter, and it's going into an ADSR and outside. And as you notice, the ADSR is even like it's just on sustain. All the settings are pretty much just initialized, and there's not a lot of modules. Forget the LFO and the clock for a minute. And the filter is just like, you know, a bit resonating, so I get that sort of whistle sound. Now, obviously, if I play it like this, it's kind of stupid, right? It's not a horrible sound. There's nothing going on with it. So my idea was to have it sort of sweep on the cutoff. Like if we take the very basic idea, let's first start by sweeping this cutoff. That's what I wanted to do. I want to keep a simple sound that is swept. So something like this. I'm moving with the mouse now. Something like that. Now I have many options to be able to do that. I can record just automation via the mouse. I can click here, assign controller to one of my external controllers, you know, and just record, obviously. And I can just even like draw here, draw an automation here, track automation, go here, choose my parameter, whatever, and just draw it in. There's many options for me to kind of be able to do these automations. But what if I want it inside the patch? What if I want the patch itself to do this, to move the cutoff? So obviously it's a simple solution on the face of things. You would just use an LFO. Okay, so you would take out this LFO-B, and you would connect the LFO to the modulation input of the filter and open up the amount a little bit. And let's say I want a really slow movement. I want it to open up slowly and then close slowly. So I would put it like on a really slow speed. And let's play it right now. Forget the clock for a minute. Okay, this is not, if I do this, it's set to this external clock. If I keep it off, it's set to the rate knob here, and it's really slow, 0.01 hertz, and it's on a sine wave. So let's take the loop off. So it's slowly opening up. So it's already kind of doing like basic idea of what we wanted to do. But if you notice right now, every time I click play, the LFO, it's not gated. The gate is not connected. So wherever it is on the sine, it's moving really slowly. But it'll start on wherever it currently is, regardless to our track. The LFO right now is moving regardless if I press play or not. So every time I click play, it's going to be on a different position, and it's going to start differently. So now we kind of caught it on a high position. If I like, talk for a minute and not press play, it's moving right now. If I press play now, let's get it a little faster so you hear the difference. Oops. So now it's low. Ook. And now it's high, and every time we press play, it starts differently. And what if we want to have more control? So first of all, we can do this. We can connect the gate into the LFO, and that tells it one thing. It tells it to each time you hear a note, start the LFO from the very beginning of your phase. So start it the same way. So I'm going to let you hear it, but you'll notice immediately this is also not a solution yet. Oops, we need to turn on the gate. So what is going on now? It's actually even worse than it was before. What it's doing now, it's restarting every single time so we don't get the sweep anymore. So what are we going to do? I mean, normally in working in a normal synth, you're kind of stuck in this way. There's no real way to solve this. Even if I put it on external and I get my timing in, every time it's going to hit retrigger, it's going to retrigger the LFO, and I'm not going to have enough time, to get the sweep in because I have hits coming all the time. Luckily, we have a solution. So this is where the multiple MIDI stuff comes in. Look, what's going on here? The gate, right, is what is triggering the LFO. And what is this gate? It's MIDI information broken down by the MIDI brain. It's basically these hits are what is telling the LFO to retrigger. So what if you could use MIDI, but do it on another channel? Let's take channel 16. Now I have this going in all my tracks now. I start a track and I open a MIDI channel. I dedicate channel 16. I just put one hit here and drag it across all my track. Just loop it. So I have this ready for whenever I want to use it in a patch. So this is just something I wanted to mention. So what is the role of this MIDI channel 16? As you notice, all I have here is just one hit. It can even be short. It doesn't even have to be this long. It can be like really short too. Because all it does is it tells it retrigger the LFO from here. Restart the LFO. This is actually not, look, this is 17. This is actually not so good. I don't want it on 17. I'll tell you why. I don't want it to retrigger every 7. I want it to retrigger right here and then do its thing. So it's set up right now the right way coming out of your sequencer. It'll all make sense in just 1 minute, okay? So remember, two things are happening here. One is sending notes. We're taking these two notes. This is what's going to our oscillators. This is not even going to our oscillators. This is going just to our LFO. And our LFO is receiving just this and not this. So again, we have to set it up over here. Right now, what we have is a MIDI brain, and it's taking channel 1, which is just this one, and it's breaking that down, and we're using that in our patch. So we're going to need, first of all, to use another MIDI brain. Let's kind of give ourselves a little bit of room over here. So let's take, I don't know, let's take the OSC here. And all we need to do is copy and get another MIDI brain in there. So, right now we have another MIDI brain, but we can't use this, right? Because this is outputting MIDI channel 1. So we need another MIDI function in between to separate these two MIDI brains. And we have this here over in the MIDI folder. Tools, MIDI channel filter. Now what it will do is it will take all the MIDI incoming into the patch and filter and send to the brain just that one channel that you want to use information from. So this actually should go here because it's part of this brain. And you need one for the second channel as well. And now we need to do two more things. First of all, we need to connect a few more things, a few more than two. And then we need to set this MIDI brain to channel 16, right? Because we wanted to take information just from channel 16. Come on, dude. Channel 16. And the overall MIDI coming into the patch, we wanted to take, it's called Omni mode. It's taking every single MIDI channel that is coming out of here, and everything is arriving here and coming out. It's only being split by the MIDI channel filters and not before. If we do like this is like MIDI channel filtered inside already. So we take Omni mode and we go MIDI channel 1, MIDI channel 16. So now this is not connected to anything yet. The patch is working as before, where the LFO is being re-triggered by the original MIDI brain, and this is what we want to delete. Now, just one thing, a little thing about scope. If you're not using envelopes with a MIDI brain, you need to make a short circuit between the e-sync and the gate, or else the MIDI brain doesn't work, doesn't output anything. It's just a technical thing about scope. So I'm taking the gate out from my new MIDI brain, my channel 16 brain, into the LFO. Now what will happen is something totally different than before. Now the LFO is disregarding these hits, these retriggers, as I've explained, and it's taking just this one. And notice there's just one, just at the, oops, but we need to take the loop here or else it won't trigger it. So it just takes this one, it starts its action right here on 1 every time the same, every time exactly the same, and it does it across 65 bars. Now if I reach here again, it'll re-trigger it again. This is just how I wanted to set up. I wanted to do 60, I wanted to, because it's a sine, so I wanted to start its activity, and on 32 it's going to go the down direction. It's going to be a really long modulation, and it's going to be really nice, let's hope. Okay, but we have to set it up here to be not on external, that's it. Okay. Now, let's open up the filter a little bit. Now you'll notice every time that I start, it's going to start the same way. You see? It's not progressing now. It's gating it every time I start. It's really slow. There we go. Now you hear a little bit of the movement because it's really, really slow. So we've got almost everything we want here. The one thing we don't have is we're still on hertz. We're not on beat. What if I want to be exactly on 146 BPM and some division of this beat? I want it to be 32 bars or 64 bars. I want it to be exactly, you know, really smooth and really nice, and to really flow with the music. I want it to be exactly on that. So the solution normally would be just to connect it to external time, put your BPM, and then take the clock division. Now this is a little limitation of the scope clock or the divider or whatever. I can only go to 1 to 1, so it'll only go on 1 bar. That's a little bit of a shame. So again, it'll just go 1 bar here and start again. It's kind of cute like this, but this is not what I wanted. So what we're going to do is we're going to delete this LFO. We have a solution for this as well. And we're going to use the flexor LFO. We have here a number of things, and we're going to take the pattern LFO. And we're actually not even going to use, there's all sorts of cool patterns here, but what we want is like the simpler one, the sine type. And the reason we use this one is because here, if I set the BPM, there's a clock inside that will let me go to really long divisions. So I can actually set it to 64. And don't forget, we need the gate. This is the whole point of this thing, because this is what's going to restart the phase each time. And then we're going to take this LFO instead of the other one, and that's all we need to do. This should work right now, hopefully. And we don't need this clock anymore actually, because we have a clock inside our LFO. just so you can see it a little better. Let's see. Very nice. Now one thing to check, let's just check that it's restarting, that it sounds the same each time, that it's re-triggering. Yep, it's working right. Okay, so you have this set up. One more thing I want to show you is the LFO phase. So you have this start point. But what if this is not the start point that you want? What if I want to start like at a much higher or lower point? So you play with the LFO phase. Remember, it's a sine, so you should. I think you should kind of play with like, let's see, by 90 degrees or something, because you want like the opposite. If you want like the exact opposite. So now it's starting low, but it doesn't really matter. But just take a crossing point. That's why I say 90 degrees. Or minus 90. Or if you want to start high, you know. Now it's starting like on the high point and diving low. So depending if you want to go upwards or downwards, once you hit your sound, is this a drop or is this a rise, you know? So just decide on your LFO phase. So this is kind of how to get really cool LFO functionality, and now it's already in the patch, you know? Now this is not an automation, it's part of the patch, and I think it makes a lot of difference because this is something you can reuse as opposed to an automation. So you have really long, bottom line, re-triggered LFOs, and they are on your beat, and this is really cool. Now, let's say I have this sound again. Let's do something even more than that, okay? Because we're playing this, so it's cute. But I want to show you how you can do even more. So as you notice, I have here channel 15 on mute, and what is on channel 15 is just I just did something silly, you know. I took my the scale here is F sharp friggin, and I just put random notes on the scale, like going up and going down and on each different hit. And the reason I did that is I wanted to show you something. So I have all these notes, and as you notice, they're on channel 15. And remember, we have channel filters here. So even if I unmute it now, like it is, it's not gonna affect our patch in any way at the moment. Now, what I want to use this information for is not for notes. I want it to, well, not per se anyway. I'm not going to send it to the oscillator. I'm going to send it to the key follow of the filter. And I think maybe I'll just show you, and you'll get more of the point. So first, this you should already understand from before. What we need is another MIDI brain because we're taking a totally different MIDI channel. And we are using, in this case, channel 15. So let's just put this on 15. And we're taking all the MIDI information into here. And setting it up. Now the brain is receiving channel 15. Again, remember, we're not using any other information. We don't have an envelope, so we must short circuit it here to in order for this to work. Okay, and what we want is the key follow, the note information, even though we're not using it as notes, we're using it as a controller. Remember that. So we're going to take the note out of here and input it into our filter. Now, if we don't have the amount open again, this is going to be like this. But now we can use these notes as a modulation source, which is really cool. So it will sound like this now. I'm going to take off the filter for the LFO for a minute, so you hear just the key follow. Let's try. It's not doing anything right now. Let me see. Why is it not singing for us? It's supposed to sing for us, guys. Let me check something. Channel 15. Note. That's strange. It's not working for me right now for some reason. I made a wrong connection and I wonder what it is. Let's see what I have here. Because here it's working. Key follow LFO, Midi, notes. I don't know. Maybe it's a bug. I guess we can move to my patch now. Because from here on it's the same. I'm just kind of... I don't like it when things aren't doing what they're supposed to do. What did I do wrong? I guess one of you is maybe seeing it now. Ah, I did nothing wrong. I just need to open the release here. There we go. Because what it's doing, it's moving. Okay. Yep, that's the solution. Okay, I'll explain why we weren't hearing anything. The reason was because what it's doing right now, so it's taking the key follow information. Remember, these notes are not being sent to the oscillator. Only this is being sent to the oscillator, and not only that, to the envelope as well. So if you have just a decay on, you're hitting here, and it's pretty much closed by the time it's hitting the next note. So, and the filter is doing all these movements, but you're not hearing them because the envelope is closed. So yeah, that's just the thing. So you have to open the envelope a little bit here on release, and now you will hear the key follow, whatever notes you input here, influencing the filter. So now it works. If you wanted to actually track exactly, so now it's tracking the notes more or less. If you put it on, really cool. What if we take it an octave up? Oops. And now you can add in our sweep as well, so check it out. Let's restart. That was nicer on the lower one. So what we have here, just want to mention one more thing, is what we've built here with the key follow is pretty much if you take out something like you've built a you're using your sequencer, so you kind of, if you have like in some synths, you'll have like a control sequencer like this, like a what they usually call it in synths, like a pattern sequencer or something like that, which is you can connect this to the modulation input, but we're just doing the same thing. So again, it's something that you can really use to make cool stuff. I can really play around with this now. I can play on the filter while having my the basic note stay, you know, on F sharp like I wanted it, and the envelope be influenced just by this. I can shorten or lengthen the envelope, which is going to be pretty cool. So you can make I don't know, you can play around with it. This is just the basic idea, okay guys? So let's see what I came up with in my patch. I want to show one more thing that I did in my patch that will explain a little bit about polyphony. So let's take what was playing here. Which one is this? Okay, let's mute this. And now we're working with this guy. So it's essentially the same thing, the same exact thing, only I did keep one LFO, extra LFO here for the filter. If I want additional, you know, a faster one, I call it fast LFO because this is limited if we wanted to sync it to the 1-to-1 bar as I showed you. So you have a fast LFO, and the rest is pretty much the same, other than, you know, on the output I have a like a chorus and saturation. And I also have delay line and just like an additional low cut here on the multi-effect. I don't know, it's just extra. And I did 2 oscillators instead of 1. So, but they're exactly the same. You know, it's just 2 os to get a fatter sound, and I used MVCC over here to get 2 unison voices over here. Now this brings me to the polyphony issue. So in scope, polyphony is handled by switching modules between single mode and polyphony mode, and this is done to preserve, DSP power. Right now, where did it go? The DSP load was right here on top, I think. There it is. So in my case, it's not using a lot of power, these two patches that we have open here. But again, it's always good to be conscious of the DSP power that you have, and build your patches in a logical and, in a good way, in a proper way. So here, everything is polyphony now, up to the poly out, which is over here. So all the synthesis itself is polyphony because I need two voices because I'm using unison over here. But look just for a second down here, and you'll notice my LFO and my slow LFO, and the stuff over here is all monophonic because all these effects are happening after the poly out. So look at it. This is the synth, and this is like a multi effect after the synth. Look at it that way. And I don't need the multi effect to be polyphonic. And I also don't need everything that's coming, like the LFO information, is going to be monophonic. It's going to be one hit, and there's no unison or anything, right? It's just triggering the LFO. So this patch can be in single mode, and it is in single mode. So every time think, while you're building your patches, about your kind of your signal flow, where you need polyphony and keep it within the signal flow before the poly out and everything polyphonic with the voices and everything. But there could be other stuff in a polyphonic patch that you can keep monophonic, and it'll be logical and the right way to go. So always keep that in mind. Now let's listen a bit to what I got out of this whole shebang. So now we're getting all the MIDI, all three MIDI channels. Some nice delay, and you can hear the cool sound of scope. I'm not even gonna play with it because, yeah, the whole point is it's automatic. A little bit. There we go. So pretty cool. Really recommend that you experiment with this, and I hope to see you tomorrow in the next video. 30 patches in 30 days. Wow. So this is number 2. 2 aux mod synth, whatever that means. See you in the next one.